For the past 5 years, I was beginning to notice more and more that the summer vacation season in Colorado kind of sucked, specifically during the months of July and August. The heat had become relentless for Colorado. We were receiving frequent ozone danger warnings, and the fire season never seemed to end. A deepening drought situation impacted Blue Mesa Reservoir and limited our ability to have fires when we went camping. And I mean the drought situation, not necessarily Blue Mesa Reservoir. And real talk, if I heard another transplant talking about how great it was that it didn't snow that much during the winter, I was going to scream and pull my freaking hair out. There was a clear disconnect in understanding how these weather conditions were not only impacting our day to day lives, there is also a direct impact on the experience that visitors are having when they visit our beautiful state. And real talk, that also impacts our money. In this episode, I'm going to share how global warming may impact your next Colorado vacation and what to consider when planning your next trip. Don't forget to grab your Insider's Guide to Colorado. I've got that included in the show notes, so make sure to hop on over. If you're listening to the show on an app, you can just go inside the app and click on the link. I'm going to put it out there that I no longer advise visiting Colorado during the months of July and August. There are several reasons why. Fire season. Even if Colorado isn't experiencing a large fire within the state, fires from other Western states will likely impact your experience in the form of smoke, haze, and high ozone. Enough where it's difficult to see the mountains from the city of Denver, or where people are strongly advised to stay indoors. If you're in the mountains, this smoke may impact your hike, your stay in one of the beautiful mountain towns. Basically, there's nothing like looking across the mountain range and seeing lingering smoke while trying to breathe during high altitude activities. Or your outdoor events such as Rockies game, concerts at outdoor venues such as Levitt Pavilion or Red Rocks will be impacted by these conditions. Flooding on burn scars. Burn scars are the areas left behind after a fire. They are vulnerable to flooding activity during rain events. I 70, one of, if not the busiest road in the state of Colorado, was shut down several times this summer due to flash flood events and massive amounts of debris that actually trapped people on the road several times. Visitors and citizens of the state then had their routes diverted around the state. Like you couldn't use I 70, but you had to go where you were trying to go. And so it ended up being this endless loop around the state. And as beautiful as Colorado is, we know that Americans do not get a huge amount of vacation time. So it was actually really bad for vacationers because they have this idea in mind, oh, hey, we're going to road trip through Colorado. And then the road that they wanted to use was closed. And if you use US 285 and you hit US 50 down in the Gunnison area, that area was closed on and off throughout the day. So it's basically a driving nightmare. Those diverted routes added a crazy amount of hours to people's trips. They spent extra on gas, and it pretty much sucked. Other mountain towns were also overwhelmed by the huge uptick in business. So they weren't even prepared to deal with all of the traffic and the people and the meals that they were serving. It was just really unsustainable over time. If the smoke is bad enough, it may also impact visibility flying into DIA or Denver International Airport, which now they keep calling DEN, DEN. I don't know. I can't keep up with all the changes. Ugh. Anyway, your flight might get canceled, delayed, or diverted. In fact, I flew in from a trip to Nashville on August 7th, 2021. I went to Nashville, it was great, but I returned home. On August 7th, 2021, Denver had the unwelcome distinction of having the worst air in the entire world. And visibility was so poor flying into the airport that day that flights were impacted coming into the city. Flights were diverted or delayed or even canceled. They just couldn't fly in, they couldn't see where they were going. Drought and lack of water. Earlier this year, I drove down to the fabulous town of Telluride, Colorado. I love Telluride. What shocked me during the drive was how low the Blue Mesa Reservoir Reserve was. It freaked me out. For residents, that low water line impacts the water they're able to use for drinking, watering lawns, that kind of thing. But for tourists, that lack of water impacts water related activities that they may engage in, such as boating, water skiing, stand up paddle boarding. So if you came to Colorado and you were like, we're going to use our boat down a Blue Mesa Reservoir, I don't know how you're supposed to do that when the water is so low. Seriously, I don't know how you're supposed to enjoy it when the water is as low as it is. And by the way, let's not forget winter. So, we're talking about the impact of climate change on your next Colorado vacation. There's also winter season. So, we talked about all the summer stuff. During the winter, if there's not enough snow, that lack of snow impacts what? Ski season. Who wants to fly to Colorado to ski on icy runs? In fact, buying a ski pass became a crapshoot for a couple of years because I just really couldn't figure out which resorts would have constant fresh powder and a deep enough base for the season. I literally was like, why am I bothering? Why am I bothering? I'll just see what happens the week that I want to go up there. So, fortunately, there are some things that you can do. Happily, or unhappily, depending on how you want to look at it, global warming is a topic that is frequently in the news, and it's not a situation. What we're dealing with is not a situation that is unique to just Colorado. In fact, the week that Denver and the state of Colorado had the worst air in the world, so did Utah. We were tied. Fun times. In fact, a lot of the problems that Colorado is being challenged by or challenged with, so are other Western states. Here are some suggestions before you book your next trip. If possible, I would strongly advise avoiding visiting Colorado during the months of July and August. Again, I've said it, they're just not enjoyable anymore. They're also packed like crazy amounts of people. But I'm advising this because those are the months when the impact of fire season seems to be felt the most. Visit between the months of September through June. Those are the best times to visit in terms of weather and crowds, and just you can really tell that fire season is starting to wane, thank God, during that time period. So it's a better trip. Use car shares or the light rail when in Denver to minimize car related pollution. So, if you're listening to the show, you might be kind of a hippie like me. And if you're wondering, well, when I'm in Denver, what can I do? Those are two really easy actions you can take. You can ride a bike, you can walk, you can use Lyft or Uber. So, there's ways to get around driving around and contributing contributing to the pollution and to just the conditions that we're experiencing. Obsessively follow the weather. Depending on the time of year, you're looking at the following reports: fire activity, snow reports, and you need to be looking at them. By the way, for those of you guys who are like, oh, I hate it when it snows in Colorado, it's Colorado. We're known for skiing. It's Colorado. If you don't want to deal with snow, just go to Florida. They don't get snow. They get sun and heat and hurricanes. So we're not forcing you to come visit us, basically. Check CDOT for road closures and other activities that may impact your next road trip. CDOT is the Colorado Department of Transportation. Be patient with businesses and staff as they navigate through supply chain impacts from disruptions caused by these unforeseen situations. It's likely that many of your favorite travel locations will hopefully in the future begin issuing similar guidance in order to help travelers plan vacations that avoid as much as possible being directly impacted by global warming activity. It's here. It's not our imagination. I know there's some people who are like, oh, it's just, it's not a big deal. It is a big deal. It's a big deal in terms of impact to the populations that are directly dealing with these situations, but it's also a big deal in terms of economic impact. So I love the earth, and I could just talk about it from that perspective. But real talk, a lot of people don't care. So I'm going to bring up the financial impact. It costs money when we're dealing with these severe environmental changes. Because who wants to travel to places that are flooded, that don't have water, that have smoke? That's just common sense. So, anyway, I hope this was helpful. Make sure to like and share the show. And I hope that your next vacation in Colorado is enjoyable and that these tips help.